Hi there, I'm James Hosmer and this is my tic-tac-toe presentation. I'm going to start with the layout here and show you that each of these squares has a square script attached to it. And we're going to begin with the square script. So in the square script, it's a nice simple small script. We're just going to keep track of the user type. So a 0 for blank space and a 1 if it's claimed by an X and a 2 if it's claimed by an O. Then we're also going to, each specific square is going to keep track of its array position. So this being a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're going to use that info to determine the win conditions later on in the manager. Now, everything begins when we press the mouse. Pressing the mouse, we're going to check when it hits the square if the square is occupied. If it's got a 1 or a 2, it fails this condition, and we just let them keep clicking. However, if it's got a 0, we know it's unclaimed, and we can paint the mark of the player and then also assign that player's 1 or 2 to the manager for the win condition check. When we paint the thing, it's either a 1 and we instantiate the X, or it's a 2 and we instantiate the Y, because a 0 we would never have gotten to this square place mark. Getting position is our way to communicate to the manager when it needs to know for the win condition. Now the manager is going to do most of our work. We start with an instantiated square array that's all blank. Start with the X player being first, and keep track of the total moves in order to determine whether or not we hit a tie when all the moves are exhausted. So down here, addressing each of these methods, placing a mark, the squares, we get the position, and we assign it the current turn, and that's whichever player is up. Then we check the win conditions, and if nobody wins, then we switch the turn. Down here in switching the turn, we just take the current turn and we mod it by 2. So it's either going to be 1 or 0, and then we add 1. So it'll either be 1 or 2, and we just toggle it back and forth. Total moves, then we increment. Back up here, then when we check the win conditions, we basically have to check the top rows, top, middle, and bottom rows, and we have to check all of the rows and all of the columns, and then the 2 diagonals. And if all of those fail, we check the tie, which comes back up to if all the moves are exhausted. Checking each row, we use a method where we're going to reuse this method. And each of these, you'll notice, is a different variety of square indices. And the square indices are going to be fed in through arguments into this, and if they all match, and they're all 1, we know that X has a line and wins, in which case we instantiate the win banner. And in this case, we know that if all the 2's align, we know that O wins, and we instantiate the O banner. And now let's take a look at how this works. X, O, X, O, X. Left vertical column wins. Sadly, I do not have a reset, so we'll do this manually. X, O, X, O, X. Middle. X, O, X, O, X. Right. Now, we'll do the top row. We'll do it with the O's. 0. O wins. And now we'll go back to the X's. XO, XO. Middle wins. Bottom wins. And now the final diagonal checks. Ooh, didn't do that right. Let's try for a cats game. That's not a cats game. I'm bad at tic-tac-toe. Or way too good at tic-tac-toe. And finally, a tie. Thank you very much. This has been a pleasure.